Meanwhile, Mr. Obtuse is over here to say, "You want that special?" Don't pay attention to Mr. Obtuse. He's just insecure. So that brings us to the 30, 60, 90 triangle. This one is a little bit different to show you what pattern, how this pattern emerged using Pythagorean theorem. So I'm just going to jump right into what the pattern looks like for each side and how we can find the other two sides if we're given one of them. Notice that for the 30, 60, 90, we don't have an isosceles triangle, so we don't have those two sides that are the same. How we are going to name them is that the side across from the 30-degree angle is going to be our short leg. The side across from our 60-degree angle is our long leg, and then of course across from the right angle is our hypotenuse. But remember when we were talking about triangle inequalities that the shortest side is always across from the shortest angle, so that helps us out here. Our pattern that we're working with is based off of the short leg. So big hint here to find the short leg first, always. So if they give you the short leg, then good times, a-rollin'. But if they don't, then we've got to find the short leg first. And then from there, we're just following the pattern, and that is that our hypotenuse is just going to be double the short leg. Our long leg is going to be the short leg times radical 3. Always finding the short leg first. So let's look at an example. For example 1, we always want to ask ourselves what leg we have, because if we don't have the short leg, we got to find it. And for example 1, we have the short leg. So we don't have to find the short leg, and we could go from there to use our pattern. So our pattern tells us that my hypotenuse is just going to be the short leg times 2. So in this case, our hypotenuse is just 10. Oh, sorry, my video got too close. My pattern also tells me that my long leg is going to be my short leg times radical 3. So my y is just going to be 5 radical 3. And that's it. I can't multiply them, so it's just going to be 10 and 5 radical 3. That's it. So we have the short leg, very simple, just following the pattern. For example 2, we have a different situation because they didn't give us the short leg. So what are we gonna do? We're gonna find the short leg first. So taking what they did give us, the fact that we have the hypotenuse to begin with, I'm gonna go back to my pattern, and since I go from short leg to hypotenuse by multiplying by 2, that means that I can go from hypotenuse to short leg by dividing by 2. So I'm just going to take the hypotenuse that they gave me. My short leg here is x because it's across from the 30-degree angle. And I'm just going to say that my x is going to be 12 divided by 2. So it ends up being 6. Once I find my short leg, then it makes it much easier to find the long leg, because now I can just use my pattern and say that my long leg is just going to be the short leg times radical 3, just like in example 1. Always find the short leg first. Okay. For example 3, now we have the situation where we have the long leg. And this is probably the trickiest one just because it involves dividing by a radical. But again, we're going to find the short leg first using our pattern. Since I go from short leg to long leg by multiplying by radical 3, that means that long leg to short leg would be dividing by radical 3. So in my example 3, if I'm going from long leg to short leg, I am going to be dividing by radical 3. So I've got my 20 divided by radical 3. And then this is what we practiced earlier. I've got to simplify, so I'm going to multiply by my radical 3 over radical 3. Anytime we've got that radical in the denominator, got to simplify it. I'm going to end up with that 20 radical 3 over my radical 3 times radical 3 is radical 9, which is just 3. So there's my short leg. And again, because I found my short leg first, it makes it so much easier to find my hypotenuse now, because I can go from my short leg to my hypotenuse by multiplying by 2. So for y, I'm just going to take my 20 radical 3 over 3 and multiply by 2. Remember that when you're multiplying something with radicals in it, that we're multiplying what's on the outsides of the radicals, what's on the inside of the radical. And since we don't have another radical here, we're just worried about the outside. So my 20 times 2 is 40, and then we're just left with the radical 3 over 3 part. Okay, so my short leg was that 20 radical 3 over 3. Hypotenuse is going to be 40 radical 3 over 3. That is pretty much the main examples. When you're given the short leg, when you're given the hypotenuse, when you're given the long leg, those are the 3 cases. But I'm going to go through a few more examples because this does take a lot of practice just to get the hang of. In fact, I would definitely recommend using the Delta Math for this lesson just so that you can get in as much practice as possible, because once you have the pattern, it's a piece of cake, but it takes a little while to just get used to what to do first. Are you multiplying or dividing? Are you multiplying or dividing by radical 3 or 2? Or radical 2 if you're dealing with 45, 45, 90. Okay, so for example 4, we're given the hypotenuse. So what are we gonna do? Find the short leg first. So in finding the short leg, since I have the hypotenuse, I'm gonna be dividing by 2. So I've got my 10 radical 2 divided by 2. And then for this one, my radical's in the numerator, so that's all good, but I can simplify my 10 over 2 to say 5 radical 2. So that is my short leg by dividing it by 2. For my long leg, remember from short to long, we're multiplying by radical 3. So I've got my 5 radical 2 that I found for the short leg times radical 3. Remember, when I'm multiplying something with radicals in it, I'm multiplying the outsides, multiplying the insides, so my outsides are just going to be 5. My radical 2 times radical 3 is radical 6. So I've got my 5 radical 2 and 5 radical 6. Okay. Last example here, example 5. Again, not given the short leg, and those are the easy ones, you can handle those. Not given the short leg, we are given the long leg. So going from long leg to short leg, we're going to be dividing by radical 3. And this one is really nice because when I go to divide by radical 3, I notice, oh hey, they both have radical 3 in them, and radical 3 divided by radical 3 is just 1. So I end up with this 4 times 1, which is just 4. So there's my x, my short leg. And then now that I have my short leg, my long leg is just going to be 4 times 2. It's going to end up being 8. So just because it has a radical in it to begin with doesn't mean that it's necessarily a harder problem for sure. With the 30, 60, 90, I would definitely keep this guy handy, just that generic, because every single time you're either going to be multiplying or dividing, and you're going to ask yourself, do I need to multiply or divide by 2? If I'm dealing with this situation, I'm going to divide by 2 to get the short leg, multiply by 2 to get the hypotenuse. If I'm dealing with short and long leg, then I'm dealing with radical 3, and I'm either going to multiply to find the long leg or divide to find the short leg. So I would definitely keep that handy. Again, it's going to take some practice. That is the end of special right triangles, and I want to give a shout out to my refrigerator for basically being a dry erase board that also keeps my food cold. See you guys.